So I wanted to ask you firstly just how you were interested in writing the book and what was your inspiration behind that?
I suppose it's, the Moorish Islamic side of Spain. That's my entry point. That's the beginning of my entire fascination for Spain, because it started when I was a teenager, and I saw some images of the Alhambra Palace in Granada and was totally knocked over by it. I mean, I was bowled over by the whole thing, because I just thought it was the most amazing, most beautiful thing I'd ever seen. And I wanted to, as a result, learn more about the culture and the people in the civilization that had been capable of creating something so amazing. And that led me eventually to do Arabic and Islamic history at Oxford. And then when I finished my degree, I went straight to Spain, because it works as an umbrella term for everything that's going on inside Islamic Spain. It's a multi-faith, multi-racial society. And, you've got local, people of local stock who've converted to Islam. You've got Berbers, you've got people of Arab heritage, you've got people from all over the Islamic Empire. You've got Persians and, whatever. And then you've got, sub-Saharan Africans coming in. It comes from Mauritania, so it comes from, the sort of Latin word meaning sort of the Maghreb and that just sort of general Northwest African sort of corner. It's this incredible melting pot. But I would say the majority of Spaniards still see Moorish Spain as somehow nothing to do with them. Part of what the Inquisition is about is kind of we've won. We finally conquered, the whole of we've Christianized the whole territory militarily. So now we need to embark on a hearts and, what today would be called a hearts and minds campaign. We now need to sort of, cleanse this land that we've now conquered, territorially, militarily. We now need to cleanse it of any of this sort of influence of Muslim and Jewish influence. And part of that is creating this sort of, what I think is a myth, this idea that you can, in a sense, put the whole of Moorish history in sort of parenthesis and kind of separate it and treat it as almost like an anomaly. And that vision of Spanish history, you'll still hear that today. Particularly on the right wing will still kind of talk in those, those kinds of terms.
Yeah, which is kind of happening in a lot of places at the moment.
And you see that again and again with right-wing movements. And Franco did it he tried to sort of bring the Visigoths in as a sort of a romantic heroes of a sort of pre-Moorish age. But it was nonsense, because the Visigoths were never really fully integrated into Spanish society. They were just a sort of military elite.
Relating to that, so you said that your theory was that Spain is actually still a Moorish country. So do you still
that? Well, what I mean by that is it's so shaped by Moorish culture in so many ways that are almost invisible.
I used to think that everybody was driven out, the Muslims and the Jews, but I think I've been reading that quite a few stayed, but like underground. You sort of alluded to that they practiced they still had their Muslims and Jewish practices, with outwardly what you're saying, trying to show that they were Christian. So in that respect, I don't know if you know much about the influence of the Moors on flamenco.
First thing I think the thing to say about flamenco is that, it's an oral tradition. There are no written records. There's no written record from, the 18th century where some flamenco or proto-flamenco singer is saying, yes, on such and such a date, I heard, this Jewish chant or this Moorish chant, and this influenced my singing, right? But I think you can very much talk about a Muslim influence, amongst other things, on flamenco. There's an influence from Byzantine music, there's an influence from Jewish music, and there's definitely influence from Moorish music. For me, one of the really obvious ones is that in flamenco they'll go le 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 or la lailo la lailo la lailo, right?
Yeah.
Which is, for me, is very obviously from la ilaha illallah. Yeah. So it's just like, for a gypsy or a Christian, hearing Muslims going la ilaha illallah a lot, they would have just heard la 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 la, right? Okay, so that gets absorbed into flamenco, and you hear this all the time. There was a Pakistani singer called Baluchi, and he went to Spain in the 50s. He had sort of Pakistani Sufi singing background, yeah, and he goes to Spain, I think in the 50s, and he hears some flamenco, and he immediately just goes, "Oh, I know this. I absolutely know this. You know, this is what I sing back at home, slightly different words." Baluchi was saying all the time. He said, "This is, it's just obvious. This is, what I sing. The Sufi music that I sing back home is exactly the same as this flamenco music here." That's another example, I think, of just this wonderful crossover. An example.
Yeah, I think I definitely need to look more deeper into that. Yeah, so those are my main questions, and I'm really excited to read your other book. Thank you so much. It's been an honor to speak to you. And
no, thank you.